With his book, Civilization of the Goldfish, Bruno Patino makes an in-depth analysis of the impact of technology on our society and our daily lives. Patino argues that today's society is increasingly influenced by digital technologies that have a profound impact on the way we think, learn, work, and connect with others. Patino uses the image of the goldfish to illustrate his point. He points out that goldfish have a very limited attention span and can only focus on what is happening right in front of them. He argues that humans are increasingly like goldfish due to our over-reliance on digital technologies, which constantly distract us and prevent us from focusing on important tasks. With the arrival of generative AI, I identify this phenomenon with the mollusk effect, in which the intellectual capacities of the individual can be considerably reduced, as if anesthetized, just as the cognitive capacities of a mollusk are limited. A mollusk is a soft-bodied animal that depends on its environment for movement and nutrition, just as a human who is overly dependent on generative AIs depends on these AIs to perform intellectual tasks and make decisions. This situation can lead to symptoms similar to those observed in people suffering from addiction. We can indeed observe a loss of concentration abilities, reduction of memory, and deterioration of social relationships. These symptoms can hinder the individual's ability to function independently and thrive in their professional and personal lives. Therefore, it is important to take steps to minimize the risks associated with overuse of generative AI. All this can and must be done while continuing to benefit from the advantages offered by these technologies. Generative artificial intelligence, GAI, is increasingly present in our daily lives, offering clear advantages for content creation. In this video, I will now discuss some dangers about learning and teaching, but which can apply to everyone. For many, the number one danger of using generative AI remains intellectual laziness. Some users may rely on quick and easy answers to questions and problems, which can lead to a reduced ability to think and solve problems independently. Generative AIs may also lead us to delegate tasks that require critical thinking, such as searching and analyzing information, to machines rather than our own brains. As we know, generative AIs can generate content that appears authentic and compelling, which can lead users to uncritically believe the information they receive. Users may also become dependent on generative AIs for information, which may result in a loss of their ability to evaluate information to identify possible biases. Biases and other prejudices are echoes of the programming of generative AI and their training on biased data. A well-known phenomenon in artificial intelligence is the bubble phenomenon. This means that language models generate content based on the content that supplied their knowledge base. If content is biased, poorly or not documented, the content generated will be filled with bias, hollow, superficial content, or even hallucinations. The bubbler phenomenon will also limit the spectrum of content generated, and this is why it sometimes happens that we are surprised that the content generated does not cover a point that we know is important. If we become mollusks, this means that we will lose this ability to analyze and question the content generated. If we become mollusks, this means that we will lose this ability to analyze and question the content generated. Users can thus be influenced by these biases and prejudices, which can lead to a distorted view of reality and decisions based on inaccurate or misleading information. Generative AIs can also be used for malicious purposes, such as spreading fake news and manipulating public opinion. Training and educating critical thinking is therefore essential for things to evolve in the right direction. The last danger I wanted to highlight is that of losing our creativity. Overcoming blank slate syndrome is easy with generative AI, but are we still capable of it today? Will we be tomorrow? First, users should be informed about the risks of using generative AI and how to minimize them. It is also important to encourage diversity of information sources to minimize bias and prejudice. Governments and organizations can also put in place regulations to govern the use and development of generative AI in certain critical areas. Developers should also take steps to minimize bias and prejudice in programming and training for these technologies. This may include transparency about the algorithms used, verification of training data, and consultation with ethics experts. Teachers, parents, but also employers and opinion leaders must promote critical thinking and encourage people to think independently. In teaching, the discourse is sometimes double. You have to think critically, but within the limits of what is expected. Big debate on education that I will perhaps address one day. Finally, it is important to foster human creativity and innovation, because generative AI cannot replace these uniquely human skills. Employers, teachers, and especially parents must encourage the development of these skills. By taking these steps, we can hope to minimize the risks associated with overuse of generative AI and preserve our ability to think, question, learn, and make critical decisions. To return to teaching, it is important to continue to evolve evaluation paradigms so as not to transform new generations into mollusks